So to kick off our afternoon session, and first to introduce our HIV and Aging plenary speaker, I welcome to the front Sanford Gaylord. Theater boys, theater boys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I even go any further, I just want to say, please, for anyone that is on the mic, respect the mic. We've got some important things that we're hearing, and everyone needs to hear this because this is a day where you might get some information that might change your life, save your life, and the reverse is opposite. You might get some information that can change and save a life. So, there's a lot that has happened in the time frame that I've lived with HIV. I've gone from youth to middle age with HIV inside of me. I won't get poetic about it because I think you all understand. Well, for me, 34 years ago, there was nothing. There wasn't even prayers because people wouldn't pray for you. And it's because of activism, advocacy, and science that we're here today. I'm not going to talk any further and go on, but let's also remember U equals U does not work for everyone. Multi drug resistant HIV is still apparent, and people are finding that out with their diagnosis. So we can never, ever become complacent. So I saw once upon a time there was nothing. I'm at a point now where my doctors have retired. What a beautiful thing it is to see that there are people that are driven by heart and passion to sometimes pick up a torch and sometimes to create their own torch. It gives me extreme pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Maya Green. She is a dedicated Chicagoan with over 15 years. Yes, clap for this woman. Clap for this sister. She is a dedicated health professional with over 15 years of experience in public health equity and medical service delivery. And she's passionate and committed to fostering equitable healthcare for underserved communities. Her journey rooted in lived experiences, growing up in Chicago, relying on public assistance, and navigating complex systems to access healthcare. This is what fuels her sense of purpose. And it's while teaching on the Southside as a young adult that Maya recognized that her students grappled with the same health disparities that she had experienced as a child. Determined to be part of the solution for her community, she obtained both an MD and MPH dual degree with a focus on health policy and administration at the University of Illinois at Chicago and a specialty fellowship in HIV medicine at Rush University Medical Center. Her expertise in developing and implementing strategies that addresses crucial disparities has allowed her to serve in citywide COVID equity strategies and national initiatives regarding HIV prevention, policy, and treatment guidelines. As founder and chief health officer of Onyx Medical Wellness PLLC, Dr. Green dedicates her efforts to providing healthcare services tailored to Black communities, encapsulated in the motto, Our Health, Reimagined, Reengaged, Redefined. Green serves on the American Medical Association's National LGBTQ Advisory Committee, as well as being a board member of Task Force Prevention and Community Services. Life is Work, another LGBT focused organization, and the 530 Scholars Program. All of these organizations supporting the Black communities on Chicago's South and West Sides. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Maya Green.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I'm a little, when I hear it, I'm a little stunned. Thank you for the beautiful introduction and the work you do. I'm a nervous walker. Oh, thank you. I get nervous when I speak in public, so I'm gonna walk because it helps me. So I will utilize this time to talk about an experience I had that fuels me. We all, as we mature, are always trying to work out something that happened to us and bring justice to it. So, in the early 1980s, many of you have heard this. I had an uncle, beautiful, brilliant, so brilliant. He would just perpetually stay in school, and when he almost completed a major, he would just stop those courses and just take another one, to the point Governor State, Chicago State, all these universities was like, you got to declare something. You got like 1,000 credit hours. No, you got to go, you know. And so he was always trying to learn. His name was Robert Bolden. I always called him Uncle Bebop. Well, he was at uh, what was Stroger, Cook County, um, at the heart of when HIV and AIDS struck Chicago. I couldn't see him because I was a teenager. But my mom, I saw him through my mom, who would come home crying. Like, you ever seen somebody bawling? Like, they crying so hard, you like, are you laughing? And then you're like, no, you're crying. You know, their shoulders are, you know, about how the doctors treated him, how his biological family treated him. We were his chosen family. Um, and I never wanted to see that or happen to anyone. So a lot of this is, I tell you that not because this moment is about me, that was the 1980s, but this moment is about you, right? So when we talk about long-term, thank you, survivors, it's over there. Thank you. We talk about long-term survivors. Um, this is about how we understand the impact of resilience. We've heard that word before, and strategy for long-term survivors of HIV in the United States. Okay. All right. First thing I want to talk about, everybody knows when you ask me to talk about something, there's only one title. Don't even ask me what it's going to be. It's going to be Disparity, Dis-ease, and Disease. How disparities created in this room in 1776. Disparities created in this room lead to dis-ease amongst those that are othered in our community, right? That actually contribute to how we get different diseases. So today we're here for HIV. You know, it has its impact, you know, how we say it in my community. No shade. I want you, you can name any disease. The pattern is the same. There was disparity. We were othered, which put us in predicaments where we were more likely, we were uneasy, and it put us in predicaments where we were more likely to get disease, but also to have, it's a cycle. And then once you get a disease, if you're thinking about HIV, right, the disparity, you were other because you were not any of these. So let's talk about this. 1776, right, declaring all men created equal, endowed with unalienable rights, can be taken away by their creator. Those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They weren't talking about most of us. They were talking about the people in the room. So let's talk about it. Most of the signers were American born, right? We've already heard problems with that. 8 were foreign born. Ages range from 26 to 70. 70 is the outlier. The majority of them were in their 30s or 40s. More than half of them were lawyers. The other ones were planters, merchants, shippers, all people that produce something. So what I'm really seeing in our community is, in this country, there are producers, there are consumers. As long as we stay on the consumer side, we're on the menu. As long as we stay on the consumer side, we're on the menu. As long as you stay on the consumer side, you are on the menu. I am on the menu. If you don't remember anything else, remember that. So right now, I'm just going to go back to a conversation we had yesterday, right? A gentleman, I'm trying to find him, stood up and said, hey, I'm having a hard time finding a job, right? What did we, I will say we, I'm a healthcare provider, I'm part of the broken system, said, oh, we got a GED program, We could pay for you to get your bachelor's, but you got to jump through all these hoops. We could get you off the, Medicaid, Medicare, but then you'd actually make less coming off of it. So you got to keep your unemployment. We could do all this, blah, 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 right? We're asking a panel of people who run businesses. None of them said, I'm going to show you how to do my job. As long as you are a consumer, you are on the menu. Those were producers. Okay. All right. So, and how did that happen? These people in this room went about creating something where they had unalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but that was on the backs of people who didn't. Political Determinants of Health. This is a book written by Daniel Dawes, and it literally talks about how those people in 1776 created what we see up there, the green pastures for themselves. But in order to maintain those green pastures, there were things like slavery and other things that still exist legally in this country, and then we find other ways, like someone was mentioning hiring people on minimum wage. When they complain about it, you get rid of them, then you hire more people, pay them minimum wage, and they just pass through, and the leadership tends to stay the same, right? So those are the desert land, right? How do we know? He's planting a baby tree, but all around the tree is other trees with fruit and all this other stuff. In this other place, you just planted it. So we can say, we planted the tree. Everybody got a tree. Everybody got a, we're a pass-through organization. Yeah, that's how it starts. So let's unpack this onion. Now look, if you look compared to the people in that room, that onion is supposed to split. I don't know why it's not splitting, but think about the layers of an onion, right? Othering involves treating a person, a group of people, as if they're different, right? And so in healthcare, it results in suboptimal care, right? I had a slide, but I know I don't have a lot of time. If you look at the immunizations that are we're supposed to provide or offer to people living with HIV, it's a whole different picture, right? So if you're there and your doctor's not doing that, it's a problem, right? Underserved, they just like, you came in, we good. You don't have access to care. You lucky to be seeing me, right? That's a lot of people have experienced that. Now, imagine if you're not the race of the people in there, you're not the same age. Remember, we saw one person that was 70, and I'll explain, that goes on in this country. Everybody else is 30 or 40. The 70-year-old tends to have more money in government. The 80-year-old people that you come, well, I can't say that. You're going to stay in a political position. They tend to be 80. They have money. Money is why that one outlier can happen. If you look, everybody else is 30, 40, 50 making those decisions, right? What happens if you're not white? What happens if you're 50 and above? What happens if you don't declare yourself to be a male gender, you don't identify? What happens if you're not in those social circles that can move some of this stuff? Like you're older, but you have money, you're in the social circle. What if you don't declare yourself Christian? What if you don't declare yourself heterosexual? What if you don't have the same status of freedom? Because as much as it's uncomfortable, not everybody in this room has the same status of freedom, right? So what happens then? You look in the context of HIV after 40 years, all these areas that we celebrate, they're people who we heard didn't have access. So we can say, oh, look at this timeline, She was like, that timeline doesn't apply to you. It don't apply to me. That timeline is we the people. All right. Now, social determinants of health and HIV amongst older people. We are a community, speaking of the United States, we throw our others away. So if I'm talking about elders, we throw our elders away. That's why you can work. We got elders in this room. You worked your 20 years. They told you you was going to get a check, and then went no money for the check, and then they hired more people, so everybody gets a smaller cut. And now you like, I did the time y'all told me I was going to do at the job. How come I'm worried about how I'm going to make my ends meet? How come I'm worried about rent? Y'all was here yesterday, people standing up. I'm 70. I'm worried about rent. How? Like Kanye would say, how, Sway? Right? And so look at all these disparities. On top of that, what if you've been diagnosed with HIV? What if you were the other? What if you were what I usually say? In some communities, they hold you as a modern day leper, right? I became a massage therapist in 2002. I ended up doing volunteer service because I signed up at the last minute, but I was grateful. Everything happened for a reason. I got to that sign up sheet. The students at Chicago School of Massage Therapy, now closed, it's Cortiva now, have picked every other slot but massaging people living with HIV. No one wanted to touch them in 2002. No one wanted to touch us. Why? The science says it's okay. We never updated our language, right? So let's talk about survivor syndrome. Someone leaned over to me and was like, is anybody going to talk about survivor syndrome? I was like, I can't wait till you see this, right? Survivor syndrome. It applies to people living with HIV. It applies to people like Kathy, loving somebody living with HIV. It applies to people who saw what my mother saw. Hold on. It's not supposed. I'm not supposed. Who saw what my mother saw in the 1980s? Because guess what? After you see something like that, you can't unsee it, right? And so now the symptoms include depression, uncertainty about the future, suicidality, right? We're all here smiling. If we had an honest moment, I said, how many people have actually thought about unaliving themselves? That's the term now, right? And people actually raise their hand. You would be shocked. Unless you read the literature, then you wouldn't be shocked, right? And we're taught to come in here. And if I say, watch this, how are you all feeling today? Everybody say, good, fine, because we're trained to feel that way. We're trained to get that response, right? Very few people will say, hey, I'm actually going through this. Very few people. But I love it when we do. Feelings of panic from growing older. This is literature. This is not me. I didn't write this, right? Social isolation, social withdrawal, which is different, right? Some people are feeling isolated right now in this room, right? You're in a room full of people. You're lonely. Some people, I know. I think we still got to talk about it. It's not lovely, but we got a lovely ending. Social withdrawal. Some people didn't even show up because they just couldn't deal with hearing it over and over again. We're going to say we're going to do something. We're going to say we're going to make changes, and then we don't, right? Survivor's guilt. Someone leaned over and said, I feel bad because I got HIV. Literally today, I got HIV. My friends got HIV in the 80s, and I lived and they didn't. Someone else leaned over today and said, I didn't get HIV, but all my friends got HIV in the 80s, and I feel guilty, right? The system is set up so we blame ourselves for any scenario we have. And that's what it means to be other. All right. I put this up. This is the Reunion Project tree. When I saw it, I said, oh, this reminds me of this tree I show all the time. It's about root work. So hypertension, diabetes, depression, all that stuff. HIV, you can put it here. I always put Hep C. I always say this because there's a cure for Hep C. If we cut off that branch, that tree grows another branch because the problem doesn't stem from anything up there. The problem is in the root, and the root is inequity and social determinants of health. And I put this here because now every time y'all see that tree, I want y'all to notice these roots. And that's what our impact has to be, right? That's where if we don't address those roots, that tree is going to be alive and well the whole time, right? So long term, okay, I'm a physician, so there's talk about long term comorbidities, cardiovascular disease, bone disease, diabetes, liver, lung disease. Did you all know that people living with HIV who smoke are at greater risk of developing lung cancer? I'll tell you why. Cognitive disorders, someone already mentioned their experience with that. Mental health disorders. Okay, why? Dr. Aguilar from Northwestern was up here and said, hey, we're looking into, and what I heard as a provider, something called the antigenic response. When this comes in my body doesn't like it. Or if I scratch you, my nail protein does not agree with you. You're going to have redness and swelling until your immune system says, that's just Maya's nail. Then it's going to calm down, But what if it's a virus in you? You can take the medicine, but the immune system still is like something's lurking. And so it's a constant state of inflammation. Medicines, as soon as possible, reduce it. But as the doctor said, Dr. Aguilar this morning, it doesn't make it go away. So that's what they're working on, right? But when you're in that constant state, it affects your blood vessels. It affects your bone. It affects your pancreas. It affects your liver, your lung, your brain. right? And over time, there's a smoldering impact. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm thankful that the research is there. But that's why you see when people are living with HIV, they have heart disease at earlier ages, things like that, because the body ages. You know what else ages? Toxic people. So you got to stay away. What else ages you is toxic people. There's scientific evidence that the bumpers called telomeres to our DNA get worn away. Like, stick your hand out. I'm toxic. I'm toxic. I'm saying stuff about you. I'm saying this. You know, just a constant. And it's like a car. It wears away at the bumper. And now, 10 years later, I'm actually bumping the car. I'm not bumping the bumper. The bumper's gone, right? So you got to protect your energy. That's not just something Black women say. It's true, right? All right. So, all right. In fact, the American Psychological Association found that the impact of HIV also extends to socioeconomics. I want to go back and mention in that room. Someone said, I don't have a job. Where can I get a job? You can get a GED. You can get a bachelor's. In that same conversation, no shade. This is where we are. I'm part of it too. I'm part of the healthcare system. So I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about all of us. You can get a bachelor's, but bachelor's don't necessarily mean you're going to get a job. Y'all remember that yesterday? You can get a GED. You can be a peer. You can be, and not knocking that. All of that is great if that's what your calling is, right? I want to stress again, the next time a panel comes forward and it's talking about all that, somebody please, if I'm not here, stand up and say, tell me how to get your job. Let's stop playing. Let's stop playing. You six figures. Tell me how to get your job. That's what you do, right? Everybody talking about lending privilege. Give privilege away. Don't lend it, because lending means you just gonna snatch it back when you're ready, right? All right. Don't let me go over time, because I'm all right. All right. And so what that leads to is, and everybody said, okay, and sat down, but you can feel in the room. Y'all didn't feel that yesterday? You're not telling me anything. We didn't get anywhere on that conversation, you know? So everybody just say, okay, and then you take your seat. Settlement of worth. That's why I was glad when Caprice came and said, you know what? I'm tired of you. Yeah, I can do case management, everything like that. How am I going to own the case management? Don't come to me asking me for access to my community. Nope. I'm going to be the founder. I'm going to be in charge. Where's my check? Don't come in here because you making millions of dollars. Where's my check? And how do I propel myself and learn this business, right? And that's the move we have to make. That's the move in resilience, right? And the market's oversaturated. It has never been done like whoever you believe in, God, the universe, yourself. It's never been done like you're called to do it. If it was, we wouldn't be in this room trying to figure out problems 40 years later. All right. When you really know the answer. Right. All right. So unpacking the onion, self-drivers. Political determinants of health actually found physical environment. The next one, social economic factors. 40% of how well you're doing, your quality of life. You coming to visit me is 20%. 20%. So me sitting there for an hour with you, which I'm happy to do, you know, and y'all that know me know we gonna talk about other stuff besides this virus, because we gonna talk about your quality of life. I remember one time when a patient came to see me. Those of you at the Core Center, I thought I was gonna get in trouble. Can't name the person is actually an advocate and outspoken person, but we had a young lady that was in Dubai. She got HIV. Her parent was a doctor at the Core that had treated me. I mean, that had trained me. No, her at Cook County. Sorry, that trained me in OB when I was a medical student. They sent me in that room to explain to the person that was my former teacher why his daughter got HIV. By the time I got out there, I thought they was gonna let me go, because I was like, wait a minute, you a whole doctor. And now you calling your daughter, like, I'm sitting there watching you call your daughter whores, like all kinds of stuff. And I said, no, she got it because she did the same thing as you. It's 3 of your kids in here. I'm 100% positive that you had sex without a condom at least 3 times, because you got 3 kids here. And I don't know if y'all remember when Dr. Pulverenti sent me in there. I said, Dr. Pulverenti, I'm so sorry I went in there and he said this and I said this. And he was like, well, Maya, I sent you in there because I knew what you was going to tell him. You know? And I was like, but we have to be as outspoken for those of us that choose to, because just like they said to that panel today, When you tell your story, you actually free other people to tell their story. And then we're not going to love it, but we're going to be able to expose how icky this whole system is, right? Right. And that's the goal. And not only expose it, we're going to be able to act on solutions that are part of our purpose. And then we become the producers, right? Other entities then become the consumers. That's the way this country works. You have to be able to produce something in order to make a solid living in this country. If you're always consuming, waiting for somebody to hire you on this little grant, it's set up. Somebody said, we got to fight over grants. It's set up so you can fight over grants, But here's an idea: you become the person in charge of the grant, not the person receiving. You become the person. If I got to ask you, if I got to take the money and ask you to do it, obviously I'm not that skilled to do it, right? So here I am, a producer making money off your gift. Y'all understand that? All right. How othering works: categorizing a group of people according to perceived differences. We're talking about, I got 10 minutes. We talking about people living with HIV. Remember, categorized, othered a long time ago, right? And it's usually the basis of stigma. The stuff a lot of times isn't even true, right? So we categorize, right? And then we identify that group as inferior, us versus them. Us versus them for people that are biased, us versus them for those of us that call ourselves allies. I'll give you an example. When I started this journey in HIV, I'm looking at so many people I work with. I'm like, uh-oh. Those of you all that I worked with maybe 10 years ago, I don't know if you remember my tirade at that institution, because we were signing disability for people living with HIV. Oh, you live with HIV, you're disabled. Give me the paper, I'll sign it. And I was like, wait, this person's gonna live for the rest of their life, and you're about to sign away their knowledge and their belief that they can go to school, that they can go to work, that they can make a successful living. Then you're gonna sign them up for Medicaid, which if it works, it works. But when people want to thrive, it doesn't work. 20 years later, we got people standing up talking about, I'm 70 and I'm trying to get a job. I don't know what to do. I've been on disability all this time. And if the medical provider is thinking it, then you're going to believe me, right? Others, even amongst us, right? So there was a study that showed most people, when they're othered, even when I sign that form for there's some pain that's going to be associated with that, right? But here's the thing: the closer the person ostracizing you, your doctor, your lover, your family, for some of us, right? How many of us have family that labeled us because we were diagnosed with HIV and we had to actually come away? Oh, y'all, I'm also a crybaby. I didn't mean for y'all to raise your hand. I can't. My heart breaks for stuff like that. Okay. But how many of us actually have family we had to come away from? And it seemed odd, but the closer that person is to you, the greater the negative impact they're going to have in this othering. Okay. How events are. And then we can become resilient if we watch the way we reflect on events. You said I was a whore. You said I was this. You called me all of this. And now I'm going to replay it in my mind. Eventually, some of that sticks in. So that's why you got to get away from toxic people real quick. All right. Now, resistance weakens if the ostracizer is close to the person. Okay. All right. Impact of othering among us. Eventually, if we're in that situation, like people who are descendants of slaves, there is some resignation to your status. That's why you got to get away real quick. You can't sit in it and soak in it. You have to get away from the people. All right. And what's the solution? Shared community approach. I'm speeding up because I got 5 minutes. Individuals have to advocate for themselves. My health behavior, am I exercising? Am I, going through smoking cessation? And I just want to say, I know smoking cessation isn't easy. My mom smoked. I used to watch her go to the doctor and he said, stop smoking. He never asked her. My dad was a drug dealer, became a drug addict. She was trying to take me to ballet and everything else, so I didn't notice the whole, and we knew as children. So she running around stressed out, so she's smoking. He never addressed that. He just said, stop smoking. So that's, we have to deal with the stuff. Interpersonal, how we treat each other, but also on the macro. It was said we can't talk about political stuff. I heard that, on the macro level, you have to use your voice. You cannot resign and say, well, I ain't gonna do nothing because I don't like none of them. Okay. You know what I'm saying? If you don't do politics, politics will do you. Now, so here it is. Don't survive, thrive. Take charge of your health. Get support today. Draw a picture of your support team. Who am I going to call when I'm sad? Who am I going to call when I'm having financial stuff? Who am I going to call when I have spiritual stuff? Who am I going to call for case management for what, each thing you need? Draw it out, put it on your mirror. Because when you're sad, a lot of times you get in this cloud and you can't think. Just go back to the paper and say, okay, this is the phone number. Draw out your support. Okay, so you know it. Tell your stories. We already, please do. And find your purpose. Find your purpose in producing, not just consuming whatever's thrown out to you. They can tell you all day there's increased funding for HIV. There's not increased funding per person. There's just increased funding. Read the end of the story. Okay, yeah. And so take your rightful seat at the table or flip over the table, right? Everybody everybody wants to, I always say everybody wants to be like the Lord. Nobody want to overturn tables. Y'all should read it sometime. But, because I started with a declaration, I want to end with a declaration. The HIV Long-Term Survivors Declaration. Can't read the whole thing, it's long, but here it is. Ours is not a movement simply about nostalgia, pain, and grief. It is also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit to humans who rolled up their sleeves and refused to accept our death sentences. And that can be death of your career when I signed that disability. It can be death of your spirit when I call you all kinds of things. It can be death of your life when I create a situation where you don't want to take your medicine. Like Larry said, how many people took their medicine? I'm one of them people I'll be looking around. We didn't all do it today, right? We didn't, right? For a lot of reasons. But the day ain't over. Please do. Every day you take it, you're thriving. So the goal is not only to survive, the goal is to thrive. So thank you. Did I make